So good morning. We want to welcome you to Coffee Talk with the Texas Freedom Colonies Project. I'm Dr. Andrea Roberts. I'm a professor at Texas A&M, founder of the Texas Freedom Colonies Project, sixth generation Texan, and descendant of several freedom colonies. And I want to tell you just briefly who we are, what the Texas Freedom Colonies Project is. Come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way with tears that has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God and true to our native land. And with that, I want to begin our program. We're excited to have so many people joining us today, and Schuyler Carter, a doctoral student at Texas A&M and team member, will give you an outline of the program. But before she does that, I want to tell you about something special about one of our guests, Mr. Sam Collins. Mr. Collins and I have crossed paths in all types of places at Texas A&M, where I'm a professor, he's an alum, where he's an active alum and a person who has partnered with Texas Target Communities and our urban planning program with work in Hitchcock to revitalize that community. He's an active leader protecting cemeteries and the rights of the 95 in Sugar Land. And the achievements and the ongoing work of grassroots preservation, historic research and advocacy, and just an amazing, successful entrepreneur. We'll get into more of everything he does, but he's been an encourager and supporter, and I'm very, very excited that he's here with us today. And I'm glad to call him a supporter and a friend. And I'm also excited about our next guest, another exciting, dynamic leader in our community who we'll get to learn more about today. But I want to go ahead and hand it over to Schuyler so she can tell us more about today's program.
Wonderful. Thank you guys for being here, everybody who's tuned in, as well as our guests. I did want to say a little bit about Miss Yolanda Bozant that is here with us today. She is a native of Houston, Texas, and is very involved in the Juneteenth celebration with Geneva in Geneva, Texas, where her ancestors are from. And so she, like Dr. Roberts said, she'll tell us a little bit more about that and that area later on. So I do want to start off making sure everybody has their beverages, since it is coffee talk. Coffee, tea, you know, I've got my tea here too. So I just want to make sure everybody has their beverages and ready to get started today. You know, we would be remiss if we did not mention and address the murder of George Floyd here in recent weeks. And actually on Monday, he was laid to rest in Houston, Texas. So I want to start with Yolanda, since she is in Houston right now, and just because he was a native of Houston, can you give us any insight into like how the Houston community is responding and reacting to this?
Good morning, everyone. I am a native of Los Angeles. I got to represent. Both of my parents are from Texas, and my husband and I moved to Texas in 2014. So my heart has always been here. So that's why I don't mind being a native. Yes, I love being a Texan. Well, as we've seen, what you've seen in Houston, you've seen pretty much all across the nation, all around the world. And in fact, I was telling my prayer partner this morning and my husband that I wanted to share some of my thoughts just to enlighten people about the whole issue surrounding George Floyd, and help them to understand that it has nothing to do with George Floyd. It's a system that has been allowed to continue over and over again. He is just another victim. So many people, we all have had our stories. The issue is that one man can murder another man, have it be caught on videotape, shown to the whole world, and a news conference is held to say, we have to investigate this. Let's take skin color out of it. Let's take all that out of it. But when we look at how this has happened again and again and again, then you find this one common denominator. That common denominator is what the issue is, that it's George Floyd, somebody before him, somebody before him. So my concern, as is most people, it's not George Floyd. It's Sam. It's Samuel's son, his grandson. It's Dr. Roberts' son, and Dr. Roberts' grandson, even though the name says Frank, I'm Yolanda. It's Schuyler. It's Schuyler's son. It's Schuyler's grandson. So as we've seen, thank God the city of Houston, the community came together. What I liked about it is that you saw people from all colors who were saying, and in particular, 2 Caucasian women who sat outside the service to say, we had to be here. And they wanted to openly apologize and say, we've heard these stories, and it takes us talking about this to help people understand, not in anger, but to help them understand that your life on your side of the tracks is totally different from my life on my side of the tracks. George Floyd, just brought it all together. He just happened to be the one who was murdered right there in the street. But y'all know it could have been my son. It could have been my brother. It could have been Sam. That is the issue. We've got to stop this. We don't want to switch it. The problem that we've had is that, well, what about black on black crime? Okay, well, that ain't what we're talking about. What about white on white crime? But we'll talk about that after we finish this. We're talking about 2 different issues right here. Because if Pookie stand on Junebug's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and everybody around the world see it, we're not gonna hold a news conference and say, well, y'all be patient. Just give us time to review all the facts. Just give us a little bit of time. We want to get all this together. And then we present it to the grand jury. But just trust, no, that's not the way it's going down. So why do some people get a pass? Some people don't get a pass. Let's deal with, right now, let's deal with the common denominator in all these. One of them just happened to have on a uniform, and one of them just happened to look like me.
I thank you for that, Yolanda. And you mentioned, the fact that it could have been anybody, any one of us, and somebody we knew. So I want to get Mr. Collins' viewpoint on it being a Black male, because it feels like they are being targeted. So I just want to get your thoughts on that, Mr. Collins.
Absolutely, it is something that we're dealing with. Just on yesterday, my son is currently a student at Texas A&M University, and he was on his way to work, walking down University Drive, and a vehicle driving by screamed a racial slur at him, a student yelling out the window. So this is 2020, and we're still having to deal with this in society. As was previously stated, I graduated from Texas A&M. Now my son is their 2nd generation. I would never have imagined that still in 2020, he would have to still face these things. And it could have been him, it could have been me. And unfortunately, it was Brother Floyd, and we're still having to deal with this. So it's something that we don't talk about enough to get at the root of the problem. We continue to kind of take a tissue and wipe our runny nose, but we're not getting at the core problem of the sickness. And I think this time we need to attack the sickness and root it out so that we could get cured of this illness that still plagues us for almost, in this territory of Texas, almost 500 years of this oppression. We often talk about 1619, but I remind people that Texas, I got my hat, 1528 is when Estanvinico Esteban was shipwrecked in Galveston. So we're coming up on almost 500 years of this enslavement and different treatment here in this Texas territory. So I just want to echo everything that has already been said.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we kind of talked about, you know, the current climate right now. And Mr. Collins, you live in the Hitchcock area. And so I wanted to get a feel for how, or what the current climate is in Hitchcock, and, you know, with the racial demographic, how is your community responding to this?
Well, one of the things that happened almost immediately is our police chief issued a public statement that received a great deal of attention, because it's one of the few times that we've seen officers start to some officers, chiefs, and sheriffs start to break ranks and speak out publicly. So that has been well received by some in the community. Some are upset that the police chiefs spoke out, but the majority of individuals were very supportive of him in his effort to talk about this conversation. In addition to that, the district attorney in Galveston County made a public statement, wrote a guest column that was published in the local paper, and there are several groups that are seeming to come together to look for solutions that maybe had not always been at the table. So we are encouraged by that fact that they are coming to the table to speak about these issues and to call out their brothers. There's still a great deal of work we have to do when the cameras leave and the media leaves. We need individuals to stay committed, because it looks like sometimes some individuals are looking for an excuse to kind of jump off the wagon of supporting the cause because of some of the negativity with some of the looting and other things. But we need to make the main thing the main thing. We still need to keep focus on what the sickness and illness is, and we need to work toward curing ourselves of that illness.
Mm-hmm. And so, are there any protests, you know, happening in your area, and what's your involvement? Because we know that you are a pillar in the community, and very involved in things that are going on. So
there have been several protests. There was one in Lamarck on Sunday. There was one in Friendswood in League City on Saturday. There have been a couple in Galveston. I attended Friendswood's rally in Lamarck. We're planning something right now in Jack Brooks Park in Galveston County that will likely be on June 20th, a rally there. On Tuesday, I was in Houston at the rally. My 22-year-old daughter wanted to go. You know, I was a little concerned about the crowd and social distancing, but when she asked me to go with her, I felt that it was important enough for me to be there with her to even put my health at risk, like so many other individuals are choosing to do. So I did go with her to Houston on Tuesday, and then I attended a rally on Saturday in Friendswood and Lamarck on Sunday. So the next one will be Galveston County, a Galveston County rally on June 20th, and it looks like we're going to start at 5:30 or 6 o'clock at Jack Brooks Park. So we want to encourage everybody to attend if they can, those in Galveston County.
Thank you. And I want to, you know, for those unfamiliar with, you know, the terminology of systemic racism, I want to kind of give that definition, because there are a lot of, protests and things going on around the world to combat some systemic racism, and it has plagued our people, Black people, for centuries. And so I want to just give that the definition, and it includes the policies and practices entrenched in established institutions which result in the exclusion or promotion of designated groups. Texas has their own storied past with racism. One example of that being the convict labor, convict leasing, and there was an example of the 95 African Americans who were found, who were located discovered at a school construction site in Fort Bend. And I know, Mr. Collins, you had a lot to do, we're familiar with that story in 2018. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and how that plays into, I guess, the legacy of injustices?
Yeah, when we talk about the legacy of Juneteenth and injustices, when Juneteenth happened in 1865, you had this hope and idea that life was going to be better, that things were going to improve now that freedom had arrived to the enslaved people. So for a 10, 12-year period there during Reconstruction, you get all excited. You have more elected officials, Black elected officials, than I believe even today on a percentage of the population at the time. And immediately following that, because of a clause in the 13th Amendment that allows for the re-enslavement of individuals through the criminal justice system, through various laws that they created, they were able to then take individuals that had been freed and put them right back on some of the very same plantations to work as convict laborers. And as bad as it sounds, when individuals had an investment of an individual, they didn't want that individual to die because they had an investment. Whereas with convict labor, they worked them so hard that if they died, they just arrested more people. So it was in some cases worse than slavery. So in Sugar Land there, they had the discovery of a cemetery there at a school site where they were building a new school, and it's been called Sugar Land 95. And they, once they located the site, we were hoping that they would not disturb it, but they ended up taking all the bodies out. They were going to move the remains. It became a big battle in the community for a couple of years. They end up putting them back, reinterring them on the same location at the school, and they went ahead and built the school. So many feel like that sacred ground has been disturbed, and many are still upset about it. So you can do hashtag Sugarland95 or search Sugarland95 for a lot more of that information. But it affected men and women. And what I try to explain to individuals, not only did it affect the people that were arrested and placed to work on these prison farms, but it affected the general public because of the threat that you could be arrested. So the intimidation and the way these laws work to even intimidate you into doing certain things is problematic. So the freedom didn't come that they were hoping for. So you have another 100 years of Jim Crow and oppression, and then we have mass incarceration even up to today with drug laws and other things. So we're still being affected. Brian Stevenson says that slavery didn't go away, it just kind of evolved. And, but there is still reason to celebrate Juneteenth and the fact that it was an attempt to move our country forward to a more perfect union. So I don't want to lose sight that while it didn't give us everything that we were hoping for, it was a pivotal point in American history and Texas history.
Thank you. We just finished talking about the Sugar Land 95, and I want to go to Yolanda. Well, this question is for both of you guys. As community activists and being very involved in your community, what type of action do you see is needed in order to combat this systemic and institutional racism in your role that you play in the community? And I'll start with you, Yolanda.
You know what? I had a talk with my son. I'm 61. My son is 39. And he really had to explain some things to me because I understand part of the struggle. I looked at some other things that happened at the end of the protest that I frowned upon because I don't condone violence. And he was trying to explain the mindset of that next generation. So the best way to answer your question is to share what my son told me, which stung because he was talking about me. He said, my grandparents were that we shall overcome generation. From, as Sam said, I was writing a note, Sam had some good stuff there, from 1865. He was saying they always gave us just enough. And when they gave us just enough, that was enough to pacify us. So we got our freedom. But then what did we do? As old folks say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Then there was, prior to 1865, once slavery was outlawed in this country, you can't sell 1/3 of a person to another, but you could lease the labor. It was still the same thing, but it was under a different name. Then the re-enslavement. So I hope we caught that before Sam was disconnected, the convict labor. Today we have the prisons for the prisons for profit. And I mean, you know what? A lot of contracts now go to the prisons. They pay these inmates 12 cents an hour, maybe 25 cents an hour, maybe 75 cents an hour if you're lucky. 10 years to build a prison. You got all these prisons being built. So going back to your question, we've always had, my son said, that we get just enough. So the struggle that went on from 1865 to 1965, my son said, my parents who fought for the civil rights, he said, but your generation, talking about me, he said, your generation failed the next generation because you all stopped the fight. You got comfortable. You were able to walk through the front door. You were able to get a job where they worked. You were able to move into their neighborhoods and send your children to their schools. But nothing changed. Because for those of us, and it was just a few of us who were able to do that. So my son said, you felt as though you had arrived. You moved to a nice neighborhood. Your children now go to school where they're the only flies in the buttermilk, so to speak. You're on the job. Not too many people around there who look like you. You're making 6 figures. You got a couple Mercedes Benzes in the driveway. And so now, wow, we have overcome. He said, but nothing changed because the struggle still it really took this. For me, I was telling my husband earlier today, I thought things had changed until 12 years ago when we had a president elected who didn't look like any of the presidents before him. So how do we fix this? Well, according to my son, he said, you're going to have to go all the way back to where Paw and Mama, they call my mother Mama. You got to go back to where Paw and Mama were. He said, no, because my generation failed the next generation, he said. So therefore, his generation, they didn't have to mow the grass because I had a gardener. They didn't have to clean the house because I had a housekeeper. We got to go to the South Coast Plaza. We got to go shopping. We got credit cards now. But nothing had changed. So now you have, he said, that generation under him. They ain't nothing like the we shall overcome generation. Now the problem is you got them picking up where my mom and daddy left off. They aren't afraid to die. They aren't afraid of the police. They aren't afraid to go to jail. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. So how do we fix this? That is a good question, because we have to be careful and make sure that we don't get another Band-Aid and we think we have fixed it. In my opinion, the only thing that's going to fix it is for that generation, several generations, to die off. Because we have other generations coming up. My grandson, who's 20 years old, when I began to talk to him about, well, what do you do? This is what you do as a Black man when you are in public. When you come face to face with the police, when I'm trying to explain all this to him, oh, grandmother, that stuff doesn't happen anymore. He was serious. Oh, no, that's your generation. So in his mind, he doesn't see racism. And a lot of 20-year-olds, it doesn't matter what color they are. They don't see religion. They don't see sexual orientation. They don't see any of that. And I think what's going to happen is that we just have to wait until several generations die off. You can't change people's view. I'm gonna say this and then I'm done. An example he gave me was the laws. You can change the laws, but you can't change people. And what a lot of us can relate to is the law that says two people of the same sex can get married. That just because that's what the law says, it doesn't mean a whole lot of people agree with it. So that's where we are. And I hope that helps. I mean, most people of color can understand that how do we change it? If there is a change, we just have to make sure we're not settling again, as my generation did. As he explained to me that my generation did. What could I say? I'm going to say amen or ouch.
That's quite a nugget to chew on. I don't want to, cut that conversation short, but I do want to take a short break and take a pause for the calls and share a couple of announcements, church announcements, and updates from the team and the project itself. And so I want to invite Dr. Roberts to come back, and she will take us into the announcements.
Okay. Well, we're going to really make sure that we focus on our communities. So we're going to have some Juneteenth announcements that we're going to share with everyone in a moment, because that's also while we're here. But I do want to tell you about some exciting ways that we want our descendants of freedom colonies to be involved with the things that we're doing, because that's why we're here. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is working on completing our map and completing our database of stories. We have a lot of ways that we do that. And we have 357 already mapped and the stories logged. What we want our public to do is to help us complete the other 200 locations that we know the names of, or we may have a little bit of information, but we may not have the locations. There's so many ways that you can do that. We ask that you first follow us on Facebook. We have our newest newsletter, so you can get a copy of our newsletter that tells you all about the exciting things that we're doing. We are doing a project that's funded in part by the Whiting Foundation, where we're going to be going around the state to museums and public archives in Houston, in Dallas, in Austin, where we're going to be setting up opportunities for you to come and share your story, and also to bring an object with you. Of course, due to COVID-19, there's been some delay on some of that, so some of it we will be doing virtually. So we ask that you join our mailing list, and you can do that by, of course, following us on Facebook, but also emailing us at freedomcoloniesproject@gmail.com. That way we can keep you on our mailing list, and you can also learn more about some other things we have going on very soon. So we have a storyteller project that we're involved with the Gregory School, the African American Library, as you'll see on the screen right now. The next project that we have is our, of course, monthly coffee talk, where we're inviting you to, again, email us at freedomcoloniesproject@gmail.com. And we are looking for more guests. We want to know what's going on in your community. If you are in a Black settlement in the state of Texas, you come from one, I don't care if you live in California, I don't care if you live in South Africa now, or wherever you live, but if you have roots in a Texas freedom colony, and that is a historic Black community founded anywhere from 1865 to about 1930, if you have a church that's that old, if you have a cemetery that's old, if you're doing something to save these communities and deal with their current issues, we want you on the show. We want to hear directly from you. So again, please follow us and email us at freedomcoloniesproject@gmail.com. The next item that we have is our county campaign. Our county campaign involves increasing the number of people we have involved in helping us complete, as I said before, the counties. So we're going to be getting out information that tell you exactly the name of the counties that have some freedom colonies. As you can see here, we have Anderson County in Texas. We have 8 of those communities mapped, and you see the names, and there's several more unmapped. So we have a certain number that we would like to get completed that are missing. And so we're going to let you know how many are missing. So we have a place for 4 locations that we're looking for. And we are looking for you to help us find the locations, stories, any information. And you can share that through our atlas as well, directly. So our atlas is also available through our website and through our Facebook page. And I'm assuming you're scrolling up now to something where I can tell them about the atlas. You have control of the page.
We're gonna tell about the details about the atlas in just a moment, but I did want to run through some of the events, and then
Yes.
they'll be able to. We have a QR code that you'll be able to easily access, and Dr. Roberts will tell you about that in
Yes.
just a moment.
Thank you.
So I do want to. I want to tell you about some events that are going on around the state this coming week. The first being an online event, actually. And just get it here. So the online event, you'll have a chance to join Pulitzer Prize winning investigative reporter and creator of the landmark 1619 Project for the New York Times Magazine, Nicole Hannah-Jones, in a conversation with the host of the Center for Investigative Reporting's Reveal podcast, Al Letson, and New Haven local columnist and communications specialist and founder of the Narrative Project, Mercy Quay. The journalist will discuss the local, national, and global impact of American slavery and liberation on democracy in America and our relationship with truth and history. This talk will include a special performance by New Haven musician Paul Bryant Hudson, presented in partnership with the Narrative Project. It's going to be streamed online, live via Facebook, their YouTube, and their homepage. And you can learn more about this event on on the Texas Freedom Colonies Facebook page in our events tab. And you can find all that information there for that event. In Houston, there's also an online campaign going on, the We Are Juneteenth campaign, and it is a digital platform that provides an opportunity to share and recognize significant contributions African Americans have made to help shape American culture and society. And for this event also, you can find more information on Emancipation Park Conservancy's Facebook page, and you'll see their social information and email and web information at the bottom of this page here. There's another event. This one actually is a in-person event in Kendleton. It's presented by the Fort Bend Black Heritage Society Incorporated and Fort Bend County Heritage Unlimited Museum. They're hosting a Juneteenth Freedom Day They're welcoming everybody to come out Friday, June 19th from 11 to 2 p.m. at 630 Charlie Roberts Lane in Kendleton, Texas. They're going to be highlighting and preserving Black history. They're having giveaways, food, music, family, friends. They are following CDC and Texas guidelines for social distancing and wearing your PPE. So they want you to bring your mask. Some will be available, but they really encourage you to bring your own mask. Disinfectant spray and wipes and everything will be available there as well. There is another event in Dallas. This is a really interesting one. It's actually a drive-through celebration for Juneteenth. So the Martin Luther King Center in Dallas is going to be hosting a drive-through Juneteenth celebration on Friday, June 19th from 10 to 12 p.m. Attendees can drive through the MLK parking lot and receive non-perishable food items, hygiene kits, household products. They are accepting donations for those who would like to give non-perishable food items, hygiene, and household products. They are accepting those Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 to 5 p.m. And for more information about becoming a community partner, donating, and sponsoring this event, you can contact a staff member at 214-670-8418. And in Fort Worth, they're also having an event with Miss Opal Lee. She is a Fort Worth resident and social impact leader. She's going to be leading a 2.5-mile caravan on Friday, June 19th. She is a 93-year-old resident who is going to be leading the caravan on foot, and the public is encouraged to socially distance and follow in their vehicles. The route of this walk is going to be from the Fort Worth Convention Center, and it will end at Will Rogers Memorial Center. Miss Opal has been doing this in order to help and bring awareness to making Juneteenth a national holiday. So she is taking this to DC. So for more information, you can also find some more information about this on our Facebook page as well. Another event in Elgin, Texas, the Juneteenth Parade and Celebration. Theirs is going to be on Saturday, June 20th. It's going to start with their grand parade. They will be lining up at Booker T. Washington Elementary, and they'll be riding through the historic downtown of Elgin. And after the parade, they will have activities at Veterans Memorial Park from the end of the parade until 6 p.m. And for more information about becoming a member or volunteering, you can contact Betty Lofton at 512-963-2721. And Lamarck, Texas, they're having a Juneteenth celebration as well on Saturday, June 20th from 3 to 6 p.m. They're going to have a vendor mall, guest speakers. Actually, our own Mr. Collins is going to be their speaker, a guest speaker there. Historian, special tributes, and scholarship presentations. They are also asking that you wear masks and social distance. You can contact Tracy Seams at 409-655-9261. And lastly, Pflugerville, Texas. They are also having an event. They're inviting people to come out and celebrate freedom with song, dance, and healing and history. Activities will be held at Lake Pflugerville, and they will also be having a car parade, so you can decorate your car and ride through Pflugerville, and it will end with a candlelight vigil. They're asking that you also wear masks and social distance as much as possible. They'll be having Mayor Victor Gonzalez and the history of Juneteenth, Miss Juneteenth pageant, a lot of different things going on there as well. So if you have any questions about that, you can email blackpflugerville@gmail.com to volunteer or anything like that. And as I said, all of this information for these events will be posted on our Facebook, the Texas Freedom Colonies Project Facebook, so that you will hopefully be able to go out and support. So I do want to get back into the interview.
She's the champion for our national Juneteenth holiday observance petition. She's out leading all of us young folks. She said, if you're under 93, you're young. So that includes all of us. but she has a petition that was started. You can go to njof.org. That's the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation website. And there'll be information there about signing the petition to make Juneteenth a national day of observance, not a paid holiday like July 4th, but a national day of observance. If we were able to get it like July 4th, that would be great. But initially, they're just looking for a day like Flag Day as a national day of observance. And individuals wonder, why do we need it? I usually explain, in your family, you probably have family members with different birthdays. So July 4th is a birthday for America and a freedom day, but we know not everyone was free on July 4th. And many say many are still not free, but Juneteenth represents like another freedom birthday. So we should be able to celebrate June 19th all the way through July 4th to celebrate freedom. So if you have an opportunity, please go to www.njof.org, find the information to sign the petition. And also there's a tab on that, Juneteenth 101. I know we can't cover everything, but there's a Juneteenth 101 link with a great deal of history and detail, behind the scenes story of how we got to June 19th, 1865, and even beyond, all the way to June 19th, 1866, because there were still enslaved people in some U.S. territories that were not states, that were not freed until June 19th, all the way up to June 19th, 1866. So it's very important that we learn the complete story about this history. I did want to mention also, Galveston has a couple of events at Ashton Villa at 10 a.m. They will have an event to honor the memory of Al Edwards, who actually helped to get the law passed in Texas, introduced the bill in 1979, and made it a law in Texas in 1980. So he passed this year on April 29th, 2020. So we want to remember him this year in our celebrations. Reedy Chapel will also have an event at 6 p.m. in Galveston, and it's going to be limited. It's not open to the public. They're going to do a virtual walk, which they reenact the walk that happened January 1st, 1866, from the courthouse square to the colored church on Broadway, which was Reedy Chapel on Broadway there in Galveston. And then they'll have a short film documentary that was done in 2015 about Juneteenth. They're going to show that kind of virtually, so everyone will be able to tune in for that. I do want to mention, I mentioned Al Edwards, but I also want to mention Dr. Ronald Myers, who passed away September 7th, 2018. He was the leader of our National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, and we're still trying to do the work to get Juneteenth as a national holiday in memory of Doc too. So these were two men that worked tirelessly to make sure we don't forget the importance of Juneteenth. The question was asked, what do we need to do? We have to stay involved, we have to educate ourselves, and we have to be bold to fight against this systematic racism and institutionalized racism whenever we see it. And we need partners and allies and other individuals to join in the fight to make this happen. So hopefully we can make Juneteenth a national holiday, and we can continue to educate the public, because a lot of people don't know what they don't know. So we want to make sure that they get this information, and then they'll be more equipped to get in the battle of the fight with knowledge and information.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Collins. With that'll end our announcement period. And so want to bring us back to our interview, and I want to talk a little bit more to Miss Yolanda about Geneva, Texas. And I know you mentioned that you grew up in Los Angeles. You're from California, but you have Texas roots. And so if you could just tell us a little bit about maybe your understanding of Juneteenth, and how it is, or how it affects you and your understanding being from the West Coast. Just
I am going to start by, if you missed what I said previously, how my son said our generation dropped the ball on a lot of things. You have to go back and listen to that. I'm listening to Sam, and I'm going to get to yours. When you talked about Miss Opal, 93, community activist. And then the first thing that went through my mind is my mother would have been 95 this year. And what did my son say? That was the generation that kept the fight, but then our generation didn't pick up the baton and keep running with it. So, you know, shout out to Miss Opal. Juneteenth, I was 8 years old when I first heard the word Juneteenth. I had never heard, but then I was from California. Most of my first cousins were from Texas. They were fully aware of Juneteenth. I only heard about Juneteenth because my mother had a baby, and he was born June 19th, 1966. That's when the older people would say he was born on Juneteenth. Okay, so when I asked my mother what that meant, then she explained to me, she said, that's the day that the Texas slaves were freed. That's all I ever knew about Juneteenth, is that it was the day that the Texas slaves were freed. We ended up moving to Texas in 2014. And I had somehow gotten involved with the cemeteries, raising money to restore our cemeteries. And I got to give a shout out to Dr. Roberts, raising awareness about these cemeteries where the former slaves are buried. Yes, we need to talk about that. So anyway, I had gotten involved in that. I was invited to go to a fundraiser. I arrived in Texas on a Wednesday. My cousin said, come for a ride with me. I took the ride to the country. I looked around, I thought, wow, I never really thought about them raising money. We're still on Juneteenth. So I did that. I thought, how can I help raise money to keep these cemeteries restored? That was 2014. So around about May, it had to have been May of 2015. Still living in Texas, and I was thinking, my mind went back to Juneteenth. And I did the math. I said, wow, it'll be 150 years since the Texas slaves were freed. Well, we just can't let that day pass. We got to do something. Since I had been in the country the year before for the fundraiser for the cemetery, and about 25, 30 people came, I thought, well, I'll just plan something and we'll go back to the same little church and we'll get about 25, 30 people to come, maybe 40, 45. I sent some letters. I think we charged $5 registration to pay for food. And then I got just what I wanted. I looked, we had about 40 people registered. And then I'm looking at the number, oh, we got about 60 people registered. We got about 80 people registered. So the week of, we still looking at the little tiny church house. So the week of, I'm looking at, we got 125 people registered. Then 140.
Oh, wow.
By the time we got there, we had well over 200 people who had come from all over, gotten in cars, driven 8 hours, because they really were going back to the place where they used to spend time with Big Mama, you know, where the ancestors are buried. But as Dr. Roberts would know so well, there's in a lot of these communities, no one really lives there. So there's no reason to go. Juneteenth brought them back, and it raised awareness. And for a lot of them, they would say, we just didn't know. And as Sam was talking about the fight, the struggle, the goal to have this day as a national holiday, or at least to observe the day. When it comes to Juneteenth, my goal was to raise awareness. And this is so good, what we're doing right here, because I'm reading, this is a book I put together last year. And fortunately, we had enough people who were still living that I could ask them about Juneteenth, their memories of Juneteenth. And if you go back and you watch Sam talking, you're going to see that I'm not looking at you. Instead, I had to pick up this book because he was saying some things. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I wrote this book. And this is cousin Geraldine. She was 96 last year, so she's 97 now. Or maybe it was Dr. Roberts who said about the June 19th was the holiday for my parents' generation. But then what do we do again? My generation, we got to go to the mall in any city we want to go to, that we want to go to. We did. So cousin Geraldine says, we celebrated July 4th as much as we could, but we didn't go at it like we did for the 19th of June. We would have a big gathering at the community center place. They had booths selling soda pop and ice cream cones. People would bring homemade cakes and put them there. They would cut great big watermelons and set them up. They would have baseball games. You better not talk about no work on Juneteenth. They would work in their own fields, but they wouldn't work for nobody else, because that was their holiday. It was a sacred day to them. Cousin Dana, who was 95 this year, she says, we were proud of the 19th of June. So many have gone to the 4th of July. The 19th of June was our day, and the whites celebrated the 4th of July. Cousin Reggie Lee, we called 4th of July the white folks' day. We took the 19th of June. We didn't work on Juneteenth. No, no, no. You better not talk about working on no 19th of June. We would get together and each family would celebrate. He goes on to talk about the celebration. Cousin Peg, who's 87 this year, on Juneteenth, we always met together as a group. You met with family, not only family, because in Geneva, everybody got together. And she talked about, you always got a new dress for Juneteenth. It was 2 times a year you got a new dress, for the 19th of June and for the big meeting. I got new shoes too. So that was the biggest day of celebration for my grandparents, for you all's grandparents.
That, and I wanna see, like, what does Juneteenth take on a new meaning now? For you, hearing the histories and knowing how your cousins and your ancestors felt about Juneteenth, how they celebrated Juneteenth, and that a lot of Black people now, my age and a little bit older than me, don't know about Juneteenth, which is somewhat unheard of to some people, especially those from Texas. But does Juneteenth, and I'll ask this to both of you, does Juneteenth take on a new meaning for you now in light of current events and in the attacks against anti-Blackness?
It did for me. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, for me, it has always been important. We've hosted events at my home in Hitchcock, at our historic property. But I think I also want to make this point, and to second what she's saying about the importance to the individuals in the community, the ancestors, of how important Juneteenth was. Juneteenth is the day that the former enslaved chose for themselves as their celebration day, because there's debate and argument about, well, people were not really free until the passing of the 13th Amendment. Lincoln signed this 13th Amendment February 1st, 1865. He got assassinated in April. Juneteenth happens in Texas. Then in December of 1865, you get the passing of the adoption, ratification of the 13th Amendment. But we have to remember, if you want to really go back and see what it meant to those individuals, I pulled up an old speech by Richard Nelson from June 19th, 1871, and you can find it online. And you could read it for yourself, and you can by reading his document and his speech, you can tell how important the day was to him. And the ancestors, when they first started having celebrations on the weekend before Juneteenth or the weekend after, many of the traditional folks got upset. Like, they don't celebrate the 4th of July on July 2nd July 1st or July 7th, you should celebrate Juneteenth on June 19th every year, because it's the day that our ancestors picked to celebrate their freedom. And of course, they didn't have social media or instant messaging. So yes, so the word traveled through different territories slowly, through telegram or horseback or whatever. But for those individuals living during that time, they chose to narrow it down to the 19th to say this is when the message came in. The other thing is not that they were saved by General Gordon Granger just coming in by himself. There were thousands of United States colored troops, black soldiers with guns that came and said, this is over. It ain't just a piece of paper. It's people, it's men in uniform that fought, that showed up on the shores of Galveston on ships that said, hey, look, it's over. And if you don't want it over, we're gonna make it over. So there's one of my grandmother's best friends growing up, Miss Faye Williams, told me that her grandfather used to tell her that it wasn't the announcement, it was the men with the guns that brought the freedom. So we need to realize too often we think other people help emancipate us or free us, but many of our ancestors fought for our own freedom. And it's not that throughout this history we haven't. There's a pushback. There are people fighting constantly to try to make sure our humanity is recognized and that we are recognized as human beings. So I just want to emphasize that the 19th of June is, as she said, a sacred holiday to many of the elders and the older people. They don't want to talk about having events on June 17th and June 21st. Juneteenth is June 19th to them.
Are you on mute?
You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
I stopped talking because I was going to let somebody else, but I could keep going on fight for yourself. You know, it wasn't Buffalo Soldiers. Buffalo Soldiers came after the Civil War. It was United States colored troops. It was men that for freedom after the Emancipation Proclamation got to Union camps and then took up arms and started fighting for their brothers, sisters, mothers, daughters, wives. We fought for our own freedom and we continue to fight. Don't let individuals make you think somebody else fought for your freedom. In addition to the Ashton Villa site, there's a monument downtown on the Strand, the Juneteenth marker in Galveston. That is where the Union headquarters was actually at. And there's been some controversy. Well, what about that statue at Ashton Villa? The distance between the marker on the Strand and the monument at Ashton Villa is about 10 blocks. It's not so much the monument or the marker that we need to talk about. It's the message of freedom. And that's what we celebrate. It's not the exact location because there are no records that show that Gordon Granger made any kind of public announcement. He issued the orders and sent it out. And that's how the message got out and started to spread. So a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And often we run away from this history because we don't know the truth. So the thing is, when you start to learn the truth about yourself, you can stand up straight, hold your head up. Your ancestors were not weak. They were strong people. And sometimes when I see the young people say, I'm not my grandparents, it upsets me because it's an insult somewhat to your grandparents. And I know what they're trying to say. I'll put these hands on you. I'm not going to take the abuse that generations before us took. But you must remember the strength in your DNA comes from your ancestors. It comes from your grandmother. They did what they had to do to survive so that you could even exist. So I would never disrespect my grandparents because I don't know the pressure that they were under to survive. It's very easy now living today to say what you wouldn't take. But when you saw individuals lynched in your community, dragged through your community by horse, hanging up in trees outside your church, your home, that's a different type of fear. When you got hit with that whip, when you saw people maimed, it's a different type of fear. And people say, well, I'd rather die. Until some of our people today can't even get through, live without turning off their cell phone. You know, so talking about what you would sacrifice until you're actually in that position of seeing your child killed, your brother killed, your dad killed. That's a different type of fear that goes into people, and they did what they had to do to survive. So all I want to encourage them, do what you have to do, fight back, be strong, but respect the fact that your ancestors had to do what they had to do so that you could even exist. And I think as H. Rap Brown said, that no slave should die of natural causes. So you should fight against your oppression in various forms, and I understand that. But also, sometimes when your head's in the lion's mouth, you got to ease it out before you start attacking the lion.
Mm.
Okay, that's a word. That's what we call that.
Right. That's
a word. That's what I like to hear. I do want to interject just to share something about how special Juneteenth is to me. We were one of those families where I guess July 4th is when we don't work, whatever that is. But Juneteenth was, ooh, it's Juneteenth. It was huge. I grew up Houston, Fort Bend boundary area, border area, and my people are from Brazoria, Fort Bend, Austin counties. And so when we did Juneteenth, Houston always did it big because I came up in the time when Al Edwards made sure it was big. He made sure that even my mom's small business, her small daycare business, we got to be in the downtown Houston parade. Anybody who wanted to dress up their car or put a float together or just walk down the street with t-shirts on, we were open and available to celebrate together. If you were a Black motorcycle group, you would see them in front of Miller Outdoor Theater, and we'd have, there'd be concerts every year. There'd be Wilson Pickett or Coco Taylor or all of these, blues artists, and it was huge. And so I always had those kind of experiences shaped me, even with all the other past jobs and everything else. It brought me back to Texas and brought me back to doing this work. It shaped who I am. And so just as Sam was saying, if you know who you are, you can stand up straight. If you had parents, if you had elders who made sure you knew that these holidays, these cultural events are not only your heritage, they're what make you what you are. It tells you where you come from, the stuff you are made of. Then you can stand the test. Then you can run the race. And so I'm so glad to hear both from Sam and from Yolanda about what the significance of these stories are to the present and the importance of linking that past to the present and what people sacrificed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here because somebody on the Middle Passage didn't decide to jump. I'm here because in the midst of slavery, someone made the choice not to give up because they had a vision that I would someday be here. What kind of hope and powerful foresight is that? What kind of a prophetic word is that they had in their hearts that they carried? And so I'm very encouraged and very excited and grateful for people like you, Sam, and for Yolanda to do this work.
Yeah, because people in my generation, we need to know. We need to know about Juneteenth, and I just wanted to share, like, me being from Oklahoma, I learned of Black history and many aspects of Black history from my family. My parents, my grandparents, and only in my high school, junior high, did we really start participating in Juneteenth celebrations. But we always celebrated the history of our ancestors and our legacies and things like that. And so, just being able to shine more light on this significant holiday, not only for the state of Texas, but how it bleeds through the country, through the Great Migration and families moving elsewhere, and being able to celebrate this monumental time for our history and for our people is really something special, and definitely really special to me because I am so passionate about history and Black history. But nevertheless, I want to, we talked a little bit about our ancestors and the what they went through. And I just want to ask quickly, both of you, or Yolanda or Sam, whichever wants to take it, what parallels do you see the Black community experiencing now that also maybe our ancestors experienced, or some parallels that you find, if any? So.
I just going through, I got a whole page of notes because this was so good. When you talk about the parallels, I wish I could have written some of the parallels down here. Mm-hmm. I don't. I don't have any because I'm just so convicted in my spirit. What I did write down, as Dr. Roberts spoke about linking the past to the present, then the first thing that came through my mind is that I'm going to have to reach from the present to the past, because that generation, every generation has passed the baton on. They standing like this with the baton. But remember, I'm in the mall shopping because I can go to any mall I want to. I got a credit card. I got a wallet full of credit cards. My kids got designer clothes and designer shoes. And meanwhile, that generation before me, my parents, oh baby, we got parallels for days. But somehow I dropped the baton. Sam, he said there's always, Juneteenth was important to him. Now here comes the challenge for my generation. Juneteenth was always important to him because of the events that were held. In other words, they just did something. It wasn't, it didn't have to be elaborate. They did something. Dr. Roberts said it was the experiences that she had. And an experience can just be sitting around the table. I didn't have that. I was like Schuyler. I knew about Juneteenth simply because that's when my brother was born. And then I had an idea to do something about Juneteenth. It became important to me when people came and then they brought their children and they brought their grandchildren, and they had somehow forgotten about it. Some of Dr. Roberts' generation who may have been there celebrating with her, some of Sam's generation, who may have participated in the celebration, but somehow they stopped the celebration. And then I also want to say, in case anybody's wondering, they're saying, what is Juneteenth? I did have a note to do the slaves in the southern states. We had the Emancipation Proclamation. Slaves were to be freed on January 1st, 1863. However, and I put this in my book to explain it to families, a lot didn't know that. It's backwards, you can't see it. But however, the Texas slaves were not emancipated till June 19th, 1865. We call it Juneteenth because the United States is the only country known to have prohibited the education of slaves. You could teach them how to count. You could teach them numbers because they got to count those bales of cotton, and they have to learn to count the cattle. They could be taught to read certain scriptures in the Bible, but other than that, they couldn't read and write. So when the slaves, because they weren't familiar with the Queen's English, they didn't know January, February, March, April, May, June, July, June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, they didn't know that. So on June 19th, Sam told the story when General Granger came and the slaves were declared free. Juneteenth, they don't know 17, 18, 19, 20th, because they were unfamiliar with the language. They knew that date, Juneteenth. And that's why some of the older folks, once they became a little more educated, they would say the 19th of June. But for those who didn't know the language, they said Juneteenth. But yes, so for me, it's important that now I have to sit down with my children and grandchildren. If you go back and you watch the beginning of it, when Dr. Roberts recited, "Lift every voice and sing," I was trying to go along with her to see, okay, it's been so long since I've done it. And so I was trying to mouth the words with her. I don't know if y'all saw me doing it. I was just trying to see if I could remember it. Ask me if my children know even the first verse to "lift every voice and sing." Ask me. I don't know. They may not. Now, if you give them the lyrics,
Yeah.
they probably can sing it.
Yes, I've been in a room at a Black event, a big gala, and it's a challenge I do too, where I just usually just recite it, right? Because I just grew up singing it, and I went to a church where we sang it, and so I look around that room, I see people of all ages, and they're like, I don't know the words. So you're not alone.
Don't know the words now. If my children can sing it if they have the paper in front of them.
Yes.
So
Right.
what I did when our grandson came to live with us for a while, then in lieu of his, I'm just trying to give some ideas for people so that we can now moving forward. Let's create a parallel. Let's create a parallel between our children and our grandchildren and our parents. Let's connect. What's what she said? Link the past to the present. Let's link that future. I mean, that next, not the present, not us, but those ahead of us. Because if we don't teach them, they surely won't know. So when my grandson came at bedtime, I would just go to YouTube and I would play Lift Every Voice and Sing. And so instead of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and all that other stuff, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And then sometime I would play it and I'd give him on YouTube, they have it where they have the lyrics and you can go down and you can read it. And I did that, but you know what? For some reason, for the past year, I forgot. And I just happened to ask him a couple of weeks ago if he remembered. And he said, yeah, I remember a little bit of it because I just didn't do it. I didn't do it on a regular basis. So, that really is my challenge and everybody else's challenge. I'm challenging those my age who have the vague memories of somebody talking about Juneteenth. Sam?
Yeah, the thing with regards to the parallels in our society, the one thing that has been consistent throughout our time on these shores is that our community has suffered. Whenever the general population is suffering, our community has suffered more. So the analogy is often used that if white America gets a cold, Black America gets pneumonia, and now it gets COVID. So it's just worse. Whether that's economically, educationally, in all areas of measurement. But at the same time, we also must realize that we've faced challenges to try to overcome those hurdles and obstacles. One of the biggest challenges is this idea that we should be shamed about slavery and what happened to the ancestors. So many people have tried to distance themselves from that history. They don't want to see slave movies. They're tired of seeing the sensationalization of the abuse and things like that. My only challenge to the public or to individuals that may be watching, specifically with the African American community, you have nothing to be ashamed of. Something happened to these individuals. They were not slaves, but enslaved. It's very important, the perspective of how you see what happened to them and the things that they went through. Draw strength from the fact that they survived. Do not be ashamed that this happened to them. They just got caught like fish in a net at a bad time. The things that happened to them during that time, they just lived at a bad time. So use all of that to motivate you to be the best barber that you could be, the best plumber, the best electrician. And I name those things intentionally because too often we talk about doctors and lawyers. Every child not going to do that. Every child not going to get a master's degree and a doctorate. So that whatever you find to do, be the best at it that you can be and have strength and draw strength from the fact that others before you came and they tried to build communities. These freedom colonies that we talk about, when they got their freedom, they didn't want anything handed to them. They built Black Wall Street in Tulsa. They built universities, Black HBCUs. They established it. Matthew Gaines helped to set up Texas A&M University and Prairie View A&M University. I didn't know that when I was attending Texas A&M University, but that's history that we should know, that Black legislators helped to establish public education because they wanted their children to be educated. So anybody that benefits from a public education owes that to the history of those individuals that thought education was a priority. Even though they were not going to the same schools at the time, they set up systems to allow public education to pay for schools and things like that. This is history that we just don't know, and we need to study so that we can have more pride in it. So, the parallels is that we continue to suffer at different levels, even though we're trying to build wealth. We're trying to educate our children. It's not that people don't, my parents valued education. My grandparents valued education. So it's not that we're not trying to do things. We are trying to do things. My parents were divorced, but my father's very active in my life. He was supportive of me. So we don't have to, this idea of single parent homes implies that the other parent didn't care. There are plenty of divorced parents from other demographics. So just because you grew up in a single parent home doesn't mean that your other parent, we need to get rid of that myth. I wasn't afraid of the police catching me with drugs. I was afraid that if my dad even smelled the scent of anything that my friends may have done, he would have knocked my brains out. So I would have been trying to call the police for help. We have strong men and women in our community. There are mothers and grandmothers that could step up to some of these young boys and young people that's doing the things that they shouldn't be doing in the streets and say, cut it out, stop it. Because they love them.
Yes.
And they got to get their attention. There are times that I've had a short fuse and I get upset, but my grandmother can calm my spirit just with a soft word. Hey, baby, calm down now. You're not going to do that. So you don't have to be the strongest person in the world to demand respect. My son is bigger and stronger than me now. I'm not going to try to wrestle and tussle with him. If my dad walked in the room right now and yelled my name, I feel like I'm 5-6 years old. Like, what happened? What did I do? It's just it's a healthy respect and love, even though I may be bigger and stronger, or my son may be bigger or stronger. That's a certain love, and we got to get that back so that we can recapture these young people and help them to be the best that they could be. That's the freedom that I want them to see, to achieve the goals and things for their life, and get away from the commercialization and material stuff. Or we could find success about how much stuff we're getting and making. That's one of the things that hurt our community. When that generation that she talked about went after the material things, the bigger house, the nicer car. Maybe we just needed a big beat up Chevy truck. Maybe we needed to stay in the neighborhood and drain it of the talented 10th of those individuals. One of the things that I do in the community of Hitchcock, we could have moved and went somewhere else. And I have to confess, my wife wanted a new house and I hadn't bought it, so I'm in trouble in the doghouse. But I thought it was important for me to stay in the community, and I sacrifice to do that where we're living now, to try to be present, because we need to show up and be present every day. Young people need to see us and know that it's possible to stay married. It's possible to be active in the community. So I'd like a new Ford truck, but it's about $75,000 with these kids in college. I can't go buy it right now. So
listen, this is
you can go get me that Ford truck that I
you're dropping so much knowledge that I want to do a little something different than what we planned. I'd like us to take one more break so that in our last 30 minutes, what I would like us to do is at least get a little time to go back live. I want to quickly do our last, the QR code scan and do an explanation of how people can get involved. And then I want to open us up quickly to see if we can get anybody who's left in the room, if they want to ask us questions, so we can interact a little bit. Okay? So we really want to make sure you have an opportunity to engage with our guests. So what we want to do is two things. I want to go right into it. I want to talk to you briefly again about ways that you can get involved with us. And then I want you to ask our guests questions. Okay? So Schuyler is preparing some information for me to share by screen with you. It's parts of our newsletter, and we particularly want to tell you ways that you can communicate with us. And we have this handy little feature. These are the different ways that you can get involved. We want you to tell us your community story. We've had our two guests today. talk about their community story by telling their own story. So some people say to me, I don't know how to tell my story. I don't know all the dates. I don't have the exact particulars. I'm worried it's wrong. We need you to tell us what you know, because chances are there's a lot of value in what you know. You know the origin story of your community. You may know the origin story of your church, and it's 100 some odd years old. You may know about a Families and Friends Day you have every year, Juneteenth celebration, any of the times or occasions in which people come back together to celebrate the founders of their communities and their ancestors. We want those stories. We want you to spread the word about what we're doing. We're also looking for leaders to join our advisory board that we're building. And we'd love for you to share your expertise with us. And we would love to share what you're doing in the community with a larger audience. If you want to use our logo, use our materials, we'd love to give you permission to do that. And we have some instructions on how you can make that possible. And if you have other ideas about how we should be collaborating together, we have a request form that you can fill out and let us know. Do you want to collaborate with our students? Do you want us to come out and help educate? All the different ways that we can collaborate so we can record this heritage and we can get a connection between the heritage, the story, your conditions today, and how we can all make a difference in preserving these communities together. So with that, Schuyler's now going to show the QR code, I believe, or what's next, Schuyler? Yes.
Or the Atlas QR code.
Yes. So Schuyler, for the people who are under 40, or over 40, can you please explain to them what they're looking at?
Sure. So this is a QR code for our Texas Freedom Colonies Atlas, and so our map, our website. So all you have to do is, if you have your smartphone, just open up your camera, direct your camera at this QR code. It will scan it, and at the top of your phone, a link will pop up. You can just click that, and then it will take you right to our atlas, and you'll be able to fill out information, look at our map, see where our surveys are, and just find out more information about the project in general. So it's really simple. You actually don't even have to click anything. Just point your camera at the QR code, and it will scan it. And it'll take you right there. You just click on the link. So
I want to give people to do that because they're sort of just registering the information, because this is not something that people look at every day. So what we're saying to you is that the way that we collect information, we have several ways. We do a lot of it electronically online, but if you want to get our surveys and print them out at your family reunion and interview people and write the information down, you can do that. You can snail mail it to us. You can email it to us. We just want it. And we want to share it with the world and make people understand how important our heritage is and how saving these places should be a priority. So if you scan this code, it allows you to enter into our website and our atlas so you can see all the different ways that you can share that information with our project. So with that, I'm going to be looking, unless you have something else. Schuyler's surprising me right now.
This is actually just a direct, if you have information that you want to enter in, like Dr. Roberts said, we want to know what you know about your community. So if you want to just go straight to the survey that she mentioned, you can do the same thing with this QR code. This is specific to the survey. So with your camera pointed at the QR code, it will scan, a link will pop up, you just click the link, and then it'll take you right to the survey. So the previous one was for the general website, the Atlas website, but this one will take you to the survey where you can enter in the information directly. Right. So that is for this one. You will leave this up for just a moment if you want to scan that one as well. Super simple. We want to make things as easy as possible.
Fantastic. Okay, so now that we're back, open this up. Okay, so what we want to do then is show those QR codes really quickly one more time.
Yes, so this is the QR code for the Atlas website. it will take you to the general website, and you're able to, navigate through the website, to our map, to our survey, all the different tabs there. You'll be able to access. And then we also have and again, just point your camera at the QR code and it will scan, and you'll be able to click the link and take you right there. And then we also have the QR code for the survey. And this will take you directly to the survey. If you have information that you just want to access the survey and not the atlas just yet, this QR code will take you there as well. Just point your camera at the QR code and it will scan and bring up a link directly to your phone or tablet, whichever. We've covered a lot of information today, and I know the viewers that were able to connect with us have learned a lot, and we thank you all for bearing with us during this this coffee talk today. I'm not seeing any questions here.
Yes, we've got about 3 people who are with us in the room. May just be us, we don't know, but I'm putting here, I've shared it with some of my followers separately. Oh, here's Erica. Erica is watching with us. So we want to go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Erica Thompson is here. Fantastic. So we want to go ahead and entertain questions from any of the people who've hung in there with us. They want to ask our guests questions, first of all. That's the most important thing. If you want to ask about their Juneteenth activities or anything that they're working on, please go ahead and type in the question, and we'll be responsive to you right away. What we have on the screen while we're waiting for questions, again, is a quick and easy way that you can connect with the project. If you have a cell phone and you have a camera on your cell phone, you can put that camera up to your screen and take a picture, right, Schuyler?
You don't have to take a picture. You don't have to hit the button. You just hold it up to the QR code, and it'll kind of try to focus in on the QR code, and it will bring up a link right to your phone. Probably look at the top of your screen on your phone, and you just click that link. It'll take you right to our website.
Great.
The question was, is the Texas Colonies Project Coffee Talk available in its entirety? She says she was watching and it kept cutting off. And she says, I fall in that category. The one your son was talking about that says, we failed our generation. I really want to hear the rest of that. I really think that our generation was focused on getting our children to college so that they can have a seat at the table. But I'm willing to listen.
So I want to just make sure that we're clear that we are going to make this entire video. We're going to put it together and make sure it's available in its entirety. I would be remiss in saying that one of the things that I think is most exciting about our movement today is that when we say Black Lives Matter, we've grown enough to realize that all Black lives matter, that our trans brothers and sisters matter, that our LGBTQ sisters matter, that every life matters, that the queer leader of the choir matters, that's always been there, that we appreciate, that all of our leadership and all of the people who make our community, that Bayard Rustin, who made sure that we had a March on Washington, who was a gay man, that we appreciate and honor and embrace all of the people who have always been a part of our community and brought us where we are today. So with that, any other questions? Any other questions or comments made?
You know, I did have a comment this year for our Juneteenth celebration. We are not coming together in Geneva. There are a lot of old people there. We normally do a weekend event. So I will still do our souvenir book. We'll focus on honoring the 2020 graduates, but I think our theme is going to be together apart. I want to keep it going.
Yeah.
Because we've done, let me see, since 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. This will be our 6th year. I'm not going to say it would have been our 6th year, but because of the work that we've put in for the last 5 years, we have gotten to the point where we have raised awareness so that when people come for the Juneteenth weekend celebration, which also happens to be the Father's Day weekend, even if they have to leave early to go back home, they're leaving their cemetery. They're leaving their cemetery donation. They're leaving an offering for the church on Sunday. So those are the little things so that I can see. I just don't want people to get comfortable and feel as though, okay, we're not having it this year. No, we still need y'all money, okay? So, and I'm sure they will still give it. That's why we're just going to be together apart.
Can you please tell us where your community is?
Our community it's East Texas. If you're familiar with San Augustine, okay, we're about 30 miles from Nacogdoches. Don't ask me which direction. We're in Sabine County. If you look at the map, you'll see, but if you look at the map of Texas and Louisiana, you'll see it's separated by a river. It's the Sabine River that separates the two. Sabine Parish is on one side of the river. Sabine County is on the other. And that's where we are. We are about 11 or 12 miles from Louisiana.
Okay.
So we are East Texas right there. Just go right across the river and you're in Louisiana.
And what are the family names or some of the anchor, organizations in the community, churches or?
Okay, our churches, we have two churches that were established in 1868. One is, which is now closed, and that is New Zion United Methodist Church. We are actually in the process of buying the building from the trustees. Our families donated enough money. We made it. They accepted our offer. Right now, we're waiting on the final paperwork for that. We also have another church, County Line Missionary Baptist Church, founded by my great-great-great-grandfather. Hey, can you let me Pappy Jack's picture? Founded by my great-great-great-grandfather in 1868. Still have a church every Sunday, and I mean, they have some good church on Sunday. Highway 21, on Highway 21 at Farm Road 3488. We still
wow.
Churches.
That's amazing.
We still have our two churches. I mean, one church holding service. We have 3 cemeteries. And to see our cemetery, they were all born slaves. And I try to get pictures. If I don't have pictures, I try to get the graves. And then I do a list of all of the families on here. Some of the families are Arnold, Barrett, Battle, Bolton, Bozeman, Buckley, Canton, Cook, Cotton, Curl, Davis, Dennis, Dupree, Earls, Edwards, Evans, Franklin, Garner, Garrett, Gadsby. The list goes on and on. These are the families. I took most of them from the 1870 census, those who've been there in the community.
So we want to ask you back. Would you be willing to come back and talk more about your work? Because I think what you do is you really encourage folks that these are things that you can do. She decided to do this. She made it a priority. Yolanda decided this was a priority, and she figured out how she was going to collect the information.
And I had fun for this next generation. The ones, they can't sit still. So we, one of my cousins has a pool. So we had the jumpers there. I had to make it fun to get them there.
Yes.
We have, the church service where we all gather at the church that is still open. And then we took family photos.
Oh, beautiful. 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 And that's all the work that we're most interested in here at the Texas Freedom Colonies Project. What Yolanda is doing is the work that we are dedicated to supporting. We want all this information that she has, and we want to make sure it is something that is made available as part of the archive, and that it is as important as any archival matter that's out there. We only have 3 minutes left. Sam, did you have any last comments that you wanted to make in our last 2 minutes?
I would encourage individuals that want more information about Juneteenth activities. There's a Facebook page, National Juneteenth Planners and Directors.
Yes.
Go to that page and you'll see activities that are listed all over the country, so you can be encouraged by that. One of the things that I did personally in my family, starting in 2004, I interviewed one of my great grandmothers that was still living at that time. She was 97 years old. And I kept saying, Mama dear, you're going to make 100. And she said, I don't want it. I've been here too long. The world's speeding up and I'm slowing down. But fortunate for us, we were able to interview her at 97, 100, 101, 102, 103. And then she passed away at 104 in 10 months. So we have priceless words of wisdom from her. In that first interview when she was 97, she recited the 27th number of Psalm, word for word. And, you know, right now, I think we are so distracted by social media and technology that we're not committed to, she said she used to read that every night before she went to bed and in the morning when she got up. So that was, and of course it was a different time, so she didn't have to compete with social media, but we need to get back to being committed to doing the work to change our behavior and our minds. We can't get caught up in the 144, 288 characters in the 30-second sound bites. Even myself, I have to find that when I'm doing research, I have to dig deeper and I have to stay longer in the fight. So I want to encourage young people to talk to your grandparents, great-grandparents, interview them. You have these cell phones, turn your recorder on and just start listening to their stories. They want to share their stories with you. And you can gain strength from their stories, because if they made it, then you can make it. When you're up against some challenge, because something's going to happen. That job loss may come, that sickness may come, disappointment. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to what happens to you, and that you hold on to that hope as you push through whatever challenges it may be. Okay, somebody didn't treat you fairly. That don't mean you quit. You got to keep going. You didn't get the promotion. Maybe God has given you an opportunity to start your own business. So you push through those time periods and you draw strength like an oak tree. We see the oak tree, the finished product. We see it after it's 150 years old. But what we don't see is the root system underneath it that gives us its life source. So that root system for us are those stories from those ancestors. So yeah, you got a new suit, you riding around in a Mercedes or Bentley or whatever you driving right now, but that root system is what gave you your strength. Don't forget to take care of that root system. And you need to know that history so the next generation will know that history. So I want to encourage individuals to talk with their parents, grandparents, and hear their stories, and take time to get away from a lot of the technology and the social media that distract us from doing the real work that's going to make the change in our life that we want to see.
Wonderful. So at this time, we'd like to let everyone know how much we appreciate you coming to join us. And we'd love your feedback. We do realize we've had a few technical difficulties, but in your viewing this in its entirety, I'm sure you see now how incredibly important our discussion has been today. And Schuyler is going to close us out with an announcement about another upcoming event and also thank our guests.
Yes.
So Schuyler's going to talk to you as she's sharing the flyer for it right now. She's going to tell you about our upcoming Juneteenth happy hour, which we will be having on Juneteenth. So she'll be sharing that advertisement shortly.
Yes, so Friday on Juneteenth, Texas Freedom Colony's project will be hosting our first ever Juneteenth happy hour. So we're just going to come together as a community. We know there's a lot of descendants and a lot of people just interested in learning more about Juneteenth and the freedom colonies that exist in Texas. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. This is just going to be a time for us to gather and commune and get to know one another and see how everyone can be involved in pressing forward this project and the awareness of freedom colonies and Black settlements all over. So we invite you to come out and Zoom, join in on Zoom. The information is here listed on the flyer, and just log in and come have fun with us and come chat with us. So we look forward to seeing you next week. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our guests, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you for the invitation. Giggle.
Thank you. Thank you all.